Well, hello, listener. This episode of Romance Writers Therapy is brought to you by Simply Spellbound Edits. Kate and I have both worked with Heather at Simply Spellbound Edits on multiple manuscripts, and we continue to do so. So if you are looking for an editor, we definitely suggest taking a look at Heather. You can reach her at heather@simplyspellboundedits.com. You can check out her website at simplyspellboundedits.com, or you can find her on Instagram, which is the way I talk to her the most. So, listener, happy editing, happy writing, and we're on with the show.
I'm recording. Are you recording?
I'm recording. Are you recording?
I am recording.
Woo!
Marty!
Hi, Kay! Hi, listener!
Hi, listener. This is Romance Writers Therapy.
Yeah, therapy! How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you? For a moment, I was like, is that for listener? Okay, hold
The
space.
silence made me think that we were waiting for listener to answer. Which
Yeah,
I found funny.
sometimes.
So, I'm doing pretty great. Yeah, it's an absolutely gorgeous day today. And, like, you know, I mean, you live in a northern place, too. Like, you gotta eat up these nice days while you can. Like...
Oh, absolutely. I want to live in, like, a year-round autumn, and I know, like, it just can't exist
It doesn't exist.
in nature, because
Yeah.
it's that transitional phase, but it's the nicest part of the year, and I just want it to last forever. Like, there are places that are year-round winter, there are places that are year-round summer.
Mm-hmm.
Why
not
don't
autumn?
we get...
Why not spring?
Why not autumn?
I love both of these places.
I feel like spring is, like, you could get somewhere that's kind of nice and warmish, but, like, not too hot, not too sunny.
Yeah.
You know? I feel like those places
That's fair,
exist.
but I don't want to live there either because I do like my seasons. But, like,
yeah. That's such an East Coaster thing to say.
An East Coaster thing? That you like your seasons?
You know, maybe it isn't. See, this is the problem whenever I talk to someone from, like, the West Coast or, like, Texas. Those are the two regions of the United States. West Coast and Texas.
Where the hell do I exist then?
You don't. You're just somewhere out there. Like, I grouped you into the East Coast. Like, this is what we say about, I can't live without my seasons.
Yeah, we definitely, we are also, I like my seasons sort of people around here.
Also, we don't acknowledge Florida.
No.
As existing.
I mean, listener, if you're in Florida, you're my favorite thing about Florida, but otherwise, like, we got beef, Florida. We've got beef. So, not as much as I have beef with Ohio. Man, I am ostracizing, like, 10 of our listeners right now. Kate, you should probably cut that.
Your vendetta with Ohio.
Oh, man.
All right.
You should cut my vendetta with Ohio and with Florida.
Just my vendetta with Florida stays.
Oh, you have a vendetta with Florida? Then the one with Florida can stay.
I did bring it up.
Well, I thought you were picking on me because I bitched about Florida before.
Oh, no. I wasn't even thinking that. I was like, oh, you know what we missed? Florida.
At least Florida gets to exist. Apparently Michigan doesn't.
No, Michigan. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, no, we're just, like, floating in the great nothing that is the middle of America.
Honestly.
Everything except for the West Coast, Florida, and Texas, and then obviously New Jersey as well. That gets to exist. And that's the map. And that's the whole thing.
And that is the entire map. There's nothing else.
Nothing else. So, Kate, what have you been up to? What's been happening?
I've been tinkering. Maliciously. Breaking into places and I'm tampering. No. Tinkering around with my Kathy's book.
Really?
I realized I had enough words for a draft, and then I was like, you know what? I could finish this off and then just put a plot in it, make it all work together. And it's coming along very slowly because everything that I wrote, I had, like, a different plot in mind, and so it feels it's going in and kind of trimming off the plot from the other scenes that I've written and just kind of weaving them in together. I don't like writing new stuff.
What do you mean?
I don't.
Are you never gonna write anything ever?
No. When it comes to editing, and this is like for me the stage of editing that, because I have to do it alone, that I don't love.
Mm-hmm.
That where I have to take all the bits and ideas and kind of make them fit together. And that does mean I'm allowed to cut things to make things fit more snugly and, kind of look like they're a coherent, progression of thought when they are in fact just 12 raccoons in a trench coat kind of vibe. Every scene is just kind of like a bunch of unrelated thoughts that I've kind of thrown into a casserole dish, and hopefully they congeal. Congeal is such an icky word.
It is a terrible word.
Like, this process isn't pretty. So that's what we're doing. And I'm kind of still at a point with it where it's like, I don't know what Randall's personality is. I'm sorry, I spoiled it. Randall's in this book.
You did too, didn't you?
Maybe I'll find a nice bleep sound effect to put over it. So what are you up to, Marty? What have you been working on?
Well, I started, because there was a scene in Accidentally Under Your Tree that I had left unfinished when I sent it to Heather, because I was just kind of having a hard time seeing where it should go, like what emotional beat it should make, and like stuff like that. And so I sent it off to Heather without that. And then when she like contacted me back, I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing with the scene. And she's like, yes, absolutely, go for it, do it. And so I've been working on that. And it is like, because it's a steamy scene.
Mm.
I mean, I'm going to have to reread this thing for sure, but like, it's pretty good. Like, that's been like the really fun thing about like rereading, like when I was working on another steamy scene in this book, I like was just rereading what I had written beforehand, right? Because I did that thing where I like had a hard time with it, so I just paused and moved on to something else, right? So I was rereading it and I was like, okay, like I see what I'm doing here. Way to go, kiddo. Like, I'm really happy with how the steam is working in this book, and I think that the chemistry between these two characters is super fun. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on, is finishing that scene. And I feel like there's other things I'm working on. I've started that marketing course over again because I got halfway done with it and then got distracted and stopped. And so I needed to start it over. I don't know. I've been doing lots. So that's where I'm at right now.
I believe you. I don't need receipts. I will just believe you, because you've been telling me like when we were trying to schedule like when to record, like, I can't do today. I got to run out and do this at 2:15. I got to do this at 10 o'clock. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, my schedule can be like just full of landmines. But like I was just thinking specifically about writing, like what I've been doing. Yeah, no, things are good. I'm so excited to release this book. And
yeah, I'm so glad you're like getting like done with it, like you've been telling me like, oh my god, I can't wait for this project to be done for like months now.
I mean, but my goodness, it was only
I'm just so glad you have that.
I did not think it could drag on this long, but it did. And like I also am really glad that like I didn't push myself to produce more, because I really did need to let my brain rest. But I've also been thinking about like Remy and Alicia, and I'm super excited about like what their book is going to look like and like stepping back into their story. Yeah, it's going to be good. So I just need to get this book done so I can go and play there. I'm very excited.
Nice.
I'm really excited about books coming up. Also been thinking about Banded Together more and more.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I would love to see you revisit Banded Together. I was thinking about I'm not trying to interrupt.
No, please do.
For listeners' context, like when Marty was writing Banded Together, I was writing Handle with Claire. These were the projects we kind of first critiqued from each other.
Yeah, we met each other on these projects.
So it's like, these are our starter projects, and it's so interesting the way that we keep talking about coming back to them, but it's what we want to do with them. The way that we can see that we've grown since then,
Yeah, well, I think also like, because we both had written things before that, but there was something about these projects and like stepping into this group in that time that like made these books really maybe even more precious than normal, right? And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why like I haven't gone back to Banded Together yet, is like it's like this time capsule that's like pretty precious to me. So yeah,
I mean, I feel that 100%. I think like there's something about the first book that you write that like you really complete. And like honestly, I don't know if this was your first book, or I had finished other books before Handle with Claire, but the books I had written before that, or few projects that there were, I kind of looked at and went, yeah, I didn't really know enough about pacing, and especially pacing for a romance genre, and the beats in the notes that I needed to hit, like all the marks that, you know, to make it feel like a proper romance story. And so I feel like when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I don't even know how to begin to fix that thing, because sorry, I'm all over the map right now. But Handle with Claire was like the first time it like really felt like I knew what I was doing and I got what I wanted to done. But at the same time, there were still so many flaws, and it was like, well, then what? You know, what do I need to fix now? And I couldn't figure out for the longest time. And I think for you with Banded Together, you've talked so much about how you would change it and the things you want to go back, and like the things that you kind of cringe at, and the things that surprise you how good they are. You know, when you reread them.
Well, and like, because it wasn't my first book and it wasn't my first romance that I completed, but it was kind of the first, like, because I had completed You and Me in Quarantine before that book, right? And You and Me in Quarantine, like, came very, like, natural. I definitely had a really strong instinct of, like, what to do where because of reading so much romance. But Banded Together, like, it was this project that, like, I sat down to do and felt like I had expectations, and, like, I wanted it to be bigger, right? Like, I wanted it to kind of say more than I expected from You and Me in Quarantine, right? And like you said, like, there are definitely elements to it like, hey, you should have said that. but like, and like also like I feel like I got lost in the weeds quite a bit. But like when I let it rest, I was able to be like, oh, this is the obvious direction for this storyline to go. Like, this is the best way to hit these tropes. And yeah, and I feel better about coming back to it now with more knowledge. But yeah, that's one of the great things about, like, I finished that draft on Accidentally Under Your Tree, and then I just kind of let myself not write. And so my brain was like thinking about stories, but I didn't have any pressure to produce. And so it was a really good break. My little brain needed it. Do you want to talk about what we came to talk about?
Oh, what did we come to talk about?
What are you reading?
What am I reading? I'm reading bit by bit. Finley Fenn's The Lady and the Orc.
Okay.
I think it's the first in the series. I don't know that for sure. I think the first time I tried to read it, I was like not in a place where I wanted to read about anything too gritty or too grim. And the first chapter or so has a real grim tone to it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to come back to this when I'm in a better state of mind. Yeah. And then it like a year passed. And so it's just kind of been on my mind, like, finish that book. I want to read the book. Everyone says it's so good. There's things that people have told me happen in the book that I wanted to read that I can't. I just know that I don't remember what they are at this point. Which is kind of describes how I read in general. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, you know what? I remember wanting to read it. I remember being motivated, so I'm gonna take that.
I feel like that is the way I would describe a lot of books that I enjoyed, but I DNF. Like, I am enjoying this book, The Write-Off by K.M. Gillis. It's really good. I'm really enjoying it. But I have been reading it since July, right? And like part of it was like I had started too many stories, and so not stories, books, and I was baiting for somebody, and so I was like, I just need to pause on this book that I am enjoying because I know I will come back to it and finish these other things that I'm like getting through, right? And so now I'm done with them, but my brain is like, you also just need to stop reading for a little bit. And I'm like, okay. But like, I'm looking at this book and I'm like, I remember enjoying it, but I can't tell you how I'm going to get back into it. Does that make sense? And it's not that I forgot anything about it. I remember. It's a weird disconnect, right?
It is, you know, I don't know what to do with it, honestly.
Yeah, me either.
But yeah, so I'm reading K.M. Gillis. I'm also reading the Menopause Manifesto, and it is really good.
Ooh.
If you want to know about, for one thing, menopause in general, but also like the medical history of menopause and, you know, the patriarchy. Wow, is this a doozy? Prepare to be angry is part of like my caveat.
One of those.
Yeah. You know what kind of anger you're gonna feel.
No, I know.
But it is so good, and it's very,
when you
very
read like medical history, once you like start to dive into it, there's some parts that are like really interesting, but there's a lot of it that's just like, oh, this is depressing.
Oh yeah, that's the dark. That's not the best part of human nature. Yeah. Well, then I was talking to my doctor, and we were talking about menopause, and she was like, yeah, there's not really any treatments for menopause. We don't know a whole lot about it. I'm like, I know, because it's only been in existence for like all of humanity, but like, why would we worry about that? We haven't had time. And so like she and I had a little like sarcastic chuckle about it. Anyway, I do suggest it, and it's really good. And if you are like, I don't know what to expect from this time in my life, it's a great resource for it. The other book I'm reading is Profit First. I can't remember who it's by, but it is about like structuring your finances around business, right? And so like that is actually applicable to like, you know, your author. And it's very interesting and it's very good. I don't know, to me the point it makes a lot of sense, but it is a very different perspective on entrepreneurial finance than we've kind of been taught forever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, definitely give it a read. Like, it sounds good.
It is.
That's one of those things that this year I've kind of been looking at and go, oh, I feel like I really need to buckle down and get better at the business aspect of it's so important, and yet it's absolutely like the last thing I really want to do with all of this.
It's really interesting because that's the way I feel about marketing. Is like this year is the year I'm like, I need to unlock something in my brain. Like there's something that's like closed up tight, and I need to like unlock it so that I can figure out how to do this. And I do feel like this year has been like such a learning experience in general.
Feel that.
Is there something that's like mystifying you right now about like the business aspect that we could chat about? And then maybe we could do the same thing about marketing, and maybe we could find a cohesive like thought in this episode, 23 minutes in.
Honestly, I don't know that I could put my finger on it.
Isn't that
I think a lot about, well, so I think that what it is that you kind of look at business and you go, I know how business works. It means, you know, like you put a product out there and you need to be making more money from it than you put into it, and hopefully that works, and hopefully whatever money you've invested in your project is going to come back to you, you know, in net sales or whatever, and then that'll be it, you know, like you kind of go, yeah, that's it, I got it, I could do this.
Yeah.
But I think there really is so much more that gets talked about, that like obviously like there's got to be so much more that like fills up all the time in literally any, for like, you know, when people go to college and they major in business, like what are they doing the whole time there? Like I'm sure like they weren't just like laughing in the classroom the entire time. I'm sure they actually had to like learn stuff and take tests on it. And I'm not saying everything you learned in college is like super vital and you can't like do your business without it, but like there's got to be some stuff in there that's like valuable enough to know that I'm missing right now.
I completely understand that feeling, again, because that's the way I feel about marketing, where the way I understand marketing, it's like build relationships, right? But they can't make up an entire bachelor's degree that's the answer on every test, right? So it's like I have just the smoothest, like broad stroke concept of what marketing is, when in fact, like there's a lot more nuance to the subject. But then when I say that out loud, I'm like, am I overcomplicating? Right? Like, Kate, where's our energy today? Where are we?
It's gone. I don't know what. You know what it is? You've found me in the middle of an ADHD hyperfixation, and my brain,
isn't
what
done
we were
with
talking
it.
about before we got on the pod, is not done with it. Can't put it down. So it's like I keep looking at my toy bin over there, like my toy bin, my
Yeah.
Photoshop tabs. I did a little art. And literally 2 days ago, I was like, I'm so mad that I only ever make art for for my fucking books, and I don't just doodle anymore. And now I'm like, what if I made an animated GIF? What if I taught myself how to animate?
Dude, and it's so cool.
Fucking...
But like, it's so cool.
It's not that good yet. It's very clunky.
Yeah, listener, I love Kate, but sometimes she's so wrong. It is as cool as I'm saying. It is so cool. Oh, gosh. No, I get that. I feel like I've just been having a hard time, like, communicating with people in general, like, verbally lately, where I'm just, like, not processing information properly. What else am I doing, Kate? God. Because I feel like I'm stuck in the same hyperfixation where all I want to do is talk to you about the scene that I'm working on.
Honestly, tell me about your scene.
Okay. So, I was struggling with it because it's a spicy scene that takes place. When I say a basement, guys, I'm thinking like it's a nice basement. Okay, it's been finished. It's like it's a living space. Okay, so it's not like a creepy basement. That's not the vibe of the book. And so when I was approaching writing the scene, like I had it in my head that they'd have to be quiet. But so much of like the way I build tension in my Steam, and I didn't realize this until I gave myself this restriction, is through noise and things that they say and like stuff like that, right?
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. And like it was such an interesting realization that I came to like last week where I was like, no, dude, it was seriously Wednesday that I was like, and today's Friday. That I was like, oh, this is why it's hard. But yeah, a lot of the ways that I pull the reader in is based on like what someone says, what sounds they make, like stuff like that. Like, and so tying my hands behind my back that way is like, okay, well, now I have to type this out with my nose, right? Like, I've got to figure out a way to do this. And so it's been really interesting to like approach this scene and intensify the other senses, intensify like the experience by removing those like sound markers.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And now it's making me wonder like, what other crutches do I use in other scenes? Right? Like,
well, I don't think you necessarily have to jump to labeling it a crutch.
Yeah, I agree. That maybe was the wrong word. What other tools?
No, I think you're good. Tools, good, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, what other tools am I using in other scenes that would become more interesting and maybe complicated if I didn't do that? Right?
Yeah.
This is an interesting thing to think about. I don't know, Kate, do you have anything that you can think of?
I think I tend to rely very heavily on... I'm sorry I'm being so quiet. I'm gonna close all my tabs.
I can hear you.
I think... You can hear me?
I can hear you.
I think what I tend to rely on is the character's internal monologue. I love to monologue. I love to get voicey in it.
Mm-hmm.
And, literally today I was looking at Instagram and Jenna Louise Skinner, I want to say her last name is.
Yeah.
I hope I got that right.
I hope so too, but I think you are right.
Her book is she's working on Pumpkin. She did the book Boyfriend book. She's also got Pumpkin Spice Witch, I think.
Oh yeah.
Something like that. And so she was posting about how she had 2 different openings for the chapter, and one of them kind of is very voicey and it's very internal monologue-y, and the second one just gets right into the action and starts the scene. There's dialogue, there's movement, and so I told her, I was like, I like the second one with the just starting off with the action and the movement. And I know it's like a flaw in my own writing that I tend to start all my chapters like very in a character's head, and then I take like 2 pages to get into any kind of like action or dialogue or like just any kind of movement, any other characters being present, And
well, maybe in your drafts, but I feel like when the book makes it to publication, like you've really like placed the beginning of the story at the beginning. Do you not feel that way?
Well, not just like the beginning of the story of like where the story itself should start, but like I feel the need, and I think it can get a little info dumpy to over internal monologue for, like at the start. And it's just where I always start all my books. I'm wondering, is it a habit? Is it my style? Or is it something I'm leaning on too much and I need to shake it up a little bit, because it bothers me when I look back at what I've written and I see just like 5-6 paragraphs and they're all kind of like medium to long paragraphs, and it's just in the character's voice and it's just internal monologue. It's world building, it's telling you things, maybe it's fun, maybe it's not.
I mean, I've always liked the way you start stories. I have never seen this as like a critique when like I'm entering into your story, right? And I know that the beginning of your stories, I tend to be very like, oh my God, I love it, right? Like I tend to like feel really excited, but at the same rate, through the experience of writing the scene that's so different from the way I would normally do it, I would say like, yeah, try it. Like try something different. Try starting the book with dialogue, right? Like if you don't like it, you can always change it back.
Well, so I think it's a little bit reflective of like the way that I am personally, is that in person, especially when I meet other people, I just don't talk. You know, I just kind of sit there and I'm quiet and I listen to everyone else talk. And I realize like that's always me having like my little social anxiety of like, anything I say is going to go bad, which is, you know, not true.
Not true.
You know,
yeah. I also did not, when like we met in person, I didn't think that you were like overly quiet.
You also like screamed from the other side of the airport, waved your hands at me. Holding still and not talking was not an option.
Did I scream? I remember like making myself not wave as big as I wanted to.
Oh,
so just
maybe you didn't scream. You got my attention. You waving the sign. You called out my name. I immediately dropped my phone. Not in fright. I just dropped it because I didn't.
Not in fright.
It didn't spook me. Scare me.
Yeah, I want you to know that was a smaller reaction to seeing you than I actually felt.
Aww.
It was much bigger, and I was like, we're in a public place. She doesn't know anyone. Just be cool. Like, also, it's Gina Louise Skinner.
Gina.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I always want to call her Jenna, too. I don't ever want to give her that first A in her name. But anyway.
Right? My brain always just goes Jenna.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Gina
yes.
Louise Skinner.
Yes. You're going to have so much dead space to edit out of this episode.
Like, hi listener, this episode is 20 minutes. You know what? I think we deserve a 20-minute episode if we so want.
Oh man.
Because we don't normally, so what we've been doing is we built up a reservoir of episodes before we started posting them so that we could post an episode every week, and it wouldn't be like, if we can't record this week, that means we don't have something to edit and post next week.
Yeah.
Because like life, it happens. It gets hectic. And it worked for the most part. Except then there kind of became these like a couple of pockets where it's like, I didn't talk to you for a month.
Yeah.
And then this week we were like, we're down to like 1 to 2 episodes left in the reservoir. We should
probably record,
we should put a couple more back in. And then so we're like, we'll do 2 episodes back to back. So we just, and the thing is, we did an episode with our lovely, we both engage her editing services, Heather Spellbound, Miss Spellbound.
As you know, Heathitor.
Heathitor.
Did we tell her that's her name?
We didn't tell her
Gosh
that.
darn it, we're the worst.
We recorded an episode, the audio got corrupted, and so we needed to re-record it. So we recorded it yesterday at the second time. And then today we're like, all right, let's do another episode. And now we're like, I can't think of what to say to you.
Yeah, we just talked. I'm not used to
like
performing
going
twice in a week.
I had a couple of thoughts about like the writing process and how much when we were at the beginning of our careers, at least I felt this way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to speak for you. The FOMO of not having a book like about to publish or releasing or because I think it's literally been like 2 weeks since Made It to My Ex came out. And I'm kind of like, is there anything else for me to do? Do I just like I have a bunch of posts kind of automatically posting. And I have other things that I'm trying to like also post for it. But then after that, newsletter, a couple of things here and there. There's something anticlimactic, and maybe it's because I've just automated so much of the process that I'm not scrambling to get it all done myself.
That's fair.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's really fair.
But like now I'm kind of like, you know what's nice? When I'm in the middle of just writing a book and working on it, and I'm not feeling the pressure to get things done, and now that I'm in a place where I can move back into that kind of headspace, and I'm like, am I just romanticizing the area I'm not in currently?
I think there's an element of that, right? It's really fun to like have reviews coming in and be like having like people reading your book and like stuff like that and posting about it. And so when you get away from that stage of the release, right? So when you get away from that stage of the release, it can be wait, I'm so sorry. My father-in-law just got here, which means that my mom's going to be leaving. So my brain went upstairs. Okay.
You're good.
So
You're good.
I was doing that Michael Scott thing where I was just talking and hoping something came together. It didn't work.
Oh no.
Okay. But I do think that there's an element of this where like when I get away from the release, I think about how exciting it is to have like people talking about my book, to have people being excited about my book, like all that stuff, right? I see that in my brain. But while I'm doing the release, I am one thing in front of the other, one thing in front of the other, one thing in front of the other, right? Like I'm just knocking down my dominoes, right? And so it's like I'm too deep in it to be excited about it, right? And so when I am not releasing, I want to be releasing because I want the dopamine of people talking about my book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the same thing, like right now, I'm going to be editing, which is my favorite part. But like also like I really want to be writing. And even more so, I want to start writing something new. But I still can't do that just yet. But it's been so long since I've started something new because like it took me so long to write this little book.
Oh, yeah.
So I haven't started anything new for probably since like November. That's a long time.
That's a while.
Isn't that a long
That's almost
time?
a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, my problem is I have a number of like little dessert projects that I started growing just because like, you know, why not? And now it's like, oh no, they're multiplying. I don't know what to do with them.
I don't know. At the same rate, like you being like, I'm close to, like I have all these words on Kathy's book and now I just have to make it cohesive. And like getting to the point where like having that book just sitting there and like you're able to publish soon. But at the same rate, like I will be in the same place with Remy and Alicia just as soon as I start working on it again, right?
Yeah.
And so like my plan for them is to sit pretty much like I'm going to do their pre-order and have it at the back of all of my back matter. Well, you know, my Grand Ridge back matter, which is the Hayes and Elijah Find Out and also Accidentally Under Your Tree. And also it will go into Just Fake Married's back matter because they're interconnected, right? And so like I'm planning on doing that and just setting it for 12 months from now, essentially, knowing that I'll probably actually release this book closer to like June or July because there's just not a ton to do on it. But like start like getting the pre-orders in and being more strategic about like starting that pre-order stage like much further in advance. But I would only be comfortable doing it with this level of like completed project in front of me.
Yeah, like you don't want to, like you want to use your time wisely so you're not.
Yeah. I mean, I've had
messing around with it too much.
I've had a better response to pre-orders for Accidentally Under Your Tree than I did for like Hayes and Elijah Find Out. And I think part of it was because like I had stepped away from social media so much last year.
Yeah.
My audience went cold. And so through the process of getting Hazel and Elijah out, I warmed the audience back up and they were prepared to pre-order from me with Accidentally Under Your Tree. I also think that I learned more effective way to like create hooks. I'm still working on it, but like I do think I'm better at it than I was. But like if I give myself 10 months to allow people to pre-order, they just finished this book, they are ready to go pre-order the next book, like that sounds so much more effective than giving myself 2 months. Right? Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm doing is like kind of like the week before release creating the pre-order for the next book so that the pre-order link can be in the back matter of the book releasing, knowing that I'm setting my pre-order as far out as I possibly can. So that's, and like, it's not a brand new strategy by any means, but it is definitely like the next thing I'm going to be willing to do. Yeah, but it is a strategy, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then if this doesn't work, I will know, like, hey, my anxiety doesn't like that kind of deadline. So, yeah, I know. Listener, I am sorry. We are who we are. Absolutely. I mean, I just hope that, like, our voices are calming to you in this moment, that you are feeling identified and seen right now. I mean, let's just spin it for a positive here. Kate, do you want to give a piece of writing advice, or do you want to keep going a little bit?
Piece of writing advice. I gotta think of one.
Ooh, I love that advice. Because like that's the way audiobook recording has felt. Is like this is a brand new like art form. This is a brand new hobby. Like this is a new challenge and a new way to use my brain. So I love that advice. I am too.
For you to have audio editing skills and like the way it impacts the way you listen to audiobooks. You know?
Yeah. It'll be interesting. And like gathered, I haven't gotten into anyone else's like I'm doing it the way I do everything. Where I'm like, this is the end goal. I'm gonna just start doing it and figure out like do's and don'ts as I go. So like my research is non-existent. My research is having heard other audiobooks. And so I don't know how much it will take me a long time to understand other people's style because I don't start going into those things until I have my own groundwork.
Yeah.
So I guess my writing advice would be to find the thing that you feel like you're mystified by and start doing the research to figure out how to understand it better. Right? Like Kate with her business acumen, like pursuits, and me with my marketing pursuits. Find that thing that you are struggling with and find your resources. Listen to your podcasts, your nonfiction books. That's how I get all of my nonfiction reading done is through audio. And it's like a lecture. It's really great. It is nice, right? And yeah, so that would be my writing advice is demystify the thing that's like causing you troubles. So
I like that.
I do too. Kate, where can they find you?
You can find me at
Woo! Yeah. I am Marty the author on TikTok and Instagram. You can definitely find me on Instagram. A little less on TikTok. You can go to martyv.com and sign up for my newsletter. And you can go to reamstory.com/martyv and actually read the early edition of Accidentally Under Your Tree now. And you can also pre-order Accidentally Under Your Tree. Baby Girl's coming out November 6th. So, yeah. I think that's it for us, listener. I hope that you found something out of this. We love you. Bye. Bye.